And welcome everyone. This is our first study group for the GCP test coming up. I think it's in March, I want to say. Camilla, you need to correct me. So thank you for everyone for joining. We had no idea how many people were going to be here, so we have a good group. Thanks for joining us. So far we have, this is going to be the first one. We have 5 more, Camilla. I can probably just look at it and not sound like I have no idea what I'm
Yes,
talking
it's
about.
6 altogether.
6 altogether. And I can even share my screen so you all can see this. So we have 6 altogether, so we do hope that you're able to attend as many of them as you'd like, that you see fit. And today we're really going to focus on quality management support, planning and developing procedures. As I said, my name is Lauren Tahachik. I'm the facilitator today, so I'm going to go through these slides. But I do have great panelists today, Camilla and Michael, so you guys can say hi.
Hello. By the way, we cannot see your slides.
You can't? My
No.
goodness, I will try again. Let's
I
see.
guess you have several screens.
No, I just didn't push the button.
Okay, we see it. It is.
Thank you. So I think we should be good now. Although now I can't see the chat. So Camilla and Michael, I'll need your help to keep me honest and make sure that the chat shows up, or if there are questions to make sure that we cover them. So we're going to focus on planning and developing procedures. I saw that Sam has already entered a question, so very good. We'll make sure to sort that out at the end, since I think it might be more of a general question. But just to remind everyone, we are recording this session, so you all should be able to hear the recording later. We wanted to make sure that you had access to any of the Q&A, or if you didn't feel comfortable speaking up because it is being recorded, that you could use the chat for your questions. As I said in the chat, please feel free to post a question during these slides. Feel free to, say, hey, lady, go ahead and stop. You need to back up. It should be really a give and take kind of session because we are here for you. Camilla, Michael, and I will speak for myself. I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty good at procedure stuff. So we should be able to at least give you an idea of what expertise you need to bring to the table as far as what kinds of questions and how to look at them. But really planning and developing procedures is kind of, I want to say, one of the basic things of a quality management system, right? They kind of go into auditing, inspection, definitely training, maintaining records. Everything that you do is really process-based. So I'm going to go through some of the kind of standard basic things about procedures, things to look at them, and then we'll also look at a couple of questions from our toolkit to share with you as far as procedure questions that you could see on the test. And then, like I said, we'll go through any questions that you might have during the presentation and certainly after. So that's our game plan. Hope it makes sense. And we're going to do the best that we can. Sound good?
Good to go.
Great. All right, let's see. I don't know how to get rid of this giant thing at the top. Oh, there it goes. It went away. Awesome. All right, let's see what we can do. So again, this is the first out of 6. So welcome to today's meeting. Again, my name is Lauren, and then we have Michael and Camilla on the panel. I don't know if there are any other faculty online, but welcome. And you can put your hand up in the chat if you're one of our faculty. So I'm just going to kick this off saying processes. Again, this is one of the basic things. I'm a process person, so I love this stuff. And I'm going to go back old school to a paper published in 2016 that I still go back to if I want a reminder about any of the quality management system pillars. And this is Transcelerate's Clinical QMS. And my snapshot that I have imprinted in my brain is also down there. And if you have these slides, which you should be able to have access to. There's also a link to the paper right here, so you can open up that paper as we go along. And I also have it opened here. Oh, I did have it opened. Right, we'll try it again. I'm not as cool as I once thought I was. So here's the paper, and then the I don't know how many people have actually read this before, but you can see processes. It's number one because it's the most important thing. So this is what we're going to go through today. And one of the things that Transcelerate does talk through are the good process characteristics. And this isn't necessarily how to answer questions on the test, but these are principles that I would encourage you to kind of remember as you study for the test about what makes a good procedure. So they have well-defined and characterized prior to determining which require supporting procedural or documentation and which do not. So our procedures define what quality records are applicable and what should be available. They are clear and articulate the understanding of what you need to do. They ensure consistency and process execution. And they are accomplished through cross-disciplinary teams. And we all know that a good QMS has leaders who review and approve our procedural documents. So again, these are just kind of principles for you to keep in mind as you go through your questions. It's kind of a weird thing, right? As far as how to prepare yourself for the test from a procedure basis, but this will give you some principles to remember. ICH.
Sorry, Lauren, may we just jump back?
Yeah.
One tip in your real life, in your roles, especially if you are on the sponsor side of the table. Process mapping is very useful, and it's a great advantage if you have like your storyboards. This may be simple, and there are software tools. So this is also something that inspectors look like and like to see during inspections. If you, let's say, transition from paper to electronic systems, and it's related to a study, for example, from paper CRFs to eCRF, and that's life experience of a friend of mine who went through all this. He said, what the inspectors like the most, we had this storyboard with a documented decision, and we were able to unwrap it layer by layer, what was happening, how the whole process was planned and mapped, including the risk assessment and the main decision and our criteria and all that. And that basically that made them win the whole inspection. And that was, by the way, a study that was completed 10 years ago, and the inspection was just a year ago. So the inspectors can go to some quite old records. You get them from archives, and how many people would be there in the company were there at the time that these processes were happening. So the documentation, especially of key decisions, and the process, how it was managed, and how change management is very important when you may be answering questions of inspectors, or maybe you are a small company, you are going to get merged with another one, the due diligence team people are coming, and they will be also interested in that. So process mapping, if it's well approached, will drive you. What should be an SOP? What should be perhaps just work instruction? What kind of document there should be as an evidence of record that goes either to TMF or to your company files. So that's just as a note, this visualization be extremely useful to give you the right direction or to show potential gaps.
Thank you, Camilla. Was there a question? I hear a couple of people coming off of mute. So indeed, I will echo what Camilla was saying, and you can hear her also touching base on the other kind of pillars of a quality management system as it relates to processes. And so again, it kind of goes back to how this is the basic, one of the basic elements of everything, right? Good procedures will help you in inspections. They will allow you to identify who is involved and when. They will help you identify what quality records ought to be part of your TMF. Risk management is also part and parcel of generating a good process. So all of these things are elements of a good procedure. And certainly you can start seeing how it's going to be like almost an interdisciplinary approach to make sure that what you have is meeting the QMS needs. Yunhai, I see your question. Will the slides be posted on the SQA website? Yes, they already are. And perhaps I can lean on Camilla or Michael to help maybe put in the chat the link where they are. If you know, if not, I can do that when we're discussing it another time. But yes, they're already posted and you have access to them. Thank you, Stella. Michael, did you want to add anything before I move forward?
No, not at this point, no.
Okie dokie, sounds good. So the other place that I wanted to touch on some elements of good processes are, our buddies at ICH. So in E6R2, they pretty much state every other line says something about procedures. Procedures are everywhere for everyone and everything. They're going to be the basis of everything that we all do. So I just wanted to capture some best practices, and maybe some of these pieces will be part of your questions in the test, maybe not. But certainly, again, think about these as principles as you go into the questions on the test. As good quality professionals, we always write down our intention. We conduct the procedure. We check for conformance, right? That's the audit piece. We identify non-compliances. We address the non-compliances in a timely and consistent manner, and we update the procedure to demonstrate process improvement. So again, we see all of these as different components of a QMS, but the basis is procedure. And of course, the other thing that ICH focuses on are non-compliances to SOPs. And actually, Transcelerate also talks about focusing on things that matter. So when there is a gap or a clarification needed in a procedure, a more efficient procedure, something that isn't clear or consistent or assigned correctly, or maybe to redundant people, we need to update our procedures. And sometimes they can have minor impacts, and sometimes they can have critical impacts on the outcome of our quality records, or certainly in GCP, we can see impacts of gaps in our processes that have a direct impact on patient safety, data integrity, or the overall clinical trial integrity. So my point of sharing with you these kind of basic principles is that both the Transcelerate QMS definition and even E6 is telling us that procedures are the basis of everything that we do. They're critical to all pillars of the QMS, and we need to respect these procedures and identify when they go wrong to improve things later on. So again, just capturing some things, again, as principles for you to think about as we go into some of the questions. Do my panelists want to add anything about ICH, or are there any questions about this?
Just a comment, there will be even more stress on quality by design and critical to quality factors in GCP R2 in the third revision, which is still being expected and will be being expected for quite some time. But maybe at the end of this year, it might be released. And the whole thing is really about thinking about what matters.
Mhm.
where if an error happens, it has significant impact, to focus. So really differentiate what is the important thing, what is less important, the kind of risk-based approach into everything. Not just have a procedure for the sake of saying we have a procedure, but it should really be fit for purpose. It should make sense. And my advice is there should be at least a small team of people who are somehow involved. Procedure is not QA task, not one-man show. Should involve people who are executing the procedure. And there, from time to time, it's very helpful to reserve the necessary time and go through the procedures as a whole again, maybe after a couple of years, and see the world is evolving, our company is evolving. It's really everything we put in place maybe years ago. Is it still fit for purpose? Is it still good to be followed? It's not just patching. It's a very critical review. And for some companies, especially the big ones with thousands of procedures, it's not an easy task. And it may take significant time. And when they do it, finally, they discover they have duplicities and triplicities and things contradicting. So finally, the result is nobody reads the procedures, meaning this is not fit for purpose. It's not helping anybody. So having this time for critical review from time to time, that's very important, especially if you started using new technology in the meantime, your department's expanded, you have a new product or service or whatever. Even if you are just a consultant advising your clients, talking to them about the importance of capturing the process and having the right procedures in place, not just to show a list, in a vendor qualification questionnaire, but to have something that really makes sense, can be followed, and helps you. So that's just my tip.
It's important to not only have processes, but to actually use them and to be able to document and show that you're using your SOPs and processes. And having lots of SOPs is not necessarily better. There's something called, death by SOP. You could have so many SOPs that no one follows anything because there are too many procedures. Or having SOPs that are 60, 70 pages long. I guarantee you no one's reading it and following.
And
I read them as an auditor and I make a lot of observations and findings.
And to your point, Michael, they're too complex, right? So, the fit for purpose piece also comes into that part as well, I think, Michael. And, they need to be fit for purpose. They need to be simple. They need to be clear. And so many times we see issues, right, in clinical research because things are too dang complex. And sometimes it goes back to our SOPs. Maybe they're not talking to one another clearly enough. Maybe they're just simply too complex and the procedure isn't broken down well enough. Maybe, as Camilla was saying, there's not a swim lane or workflow in a way that can be visualized and used properly. So those are the other elements too, I think, that you were referring to, Michael, that just make sometimes that death by SOP happen to us. And as good GCP people, we can see that and we can support our operations and making sure that they are usable. And those quality records that are designated are generated each and every time.
We have a question here in the chat. To your point about death by SOP, what do you think should come first? Procedure and then SOP, or SOP first and then implement? What are the pros and cons to the two options? Just wanted to hear your thoughts.
It's a good question, Stella. Thank you. I'm going to send that to Michael since he brought up death by SOP.
My perspective, I think you have to have the procedure first, then you write an SOP that reflects what the practice is going to be. You can't, I don't think, write the practice and then try to, it's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. You got to figure out what the process is, and then just write a procedure to memorialize it, or an SOP to memorialize it. But again, don't make it too detailed and 60 pages long. But you also don't want an SOP that is 3 sentences where the SOP says everybody follows the regulations in 312 point whatever.
Yeah.
And one good point is if you can practically each time, you can have a flow chart. Don't be afraid of diagrams, of various schemes. One good diagram is better than 5 pages of text, because you can see how the whole thing works. What is the flow? Who finishes what and who continues taking it as input, and what would be the output? Again, it helps to identify gaps, and it's easier to remember. I would not remember reading 10 pages of text, but if I see, for example, data management SOP, I look at the diagram, go through it, and it's clear, it's logical, it makes perfect sense. And then I see evidence that they really do what they say they will be doing. I'm perfectly happy, and I don't need to read too much more. From the picture I see, they understand what should be done, and the approach is correct. So use diagrams, use bullet points, use even colors and bold font or whatever to attract the eye of the reader, of your colleague, to what is important in the SOP. Not just a flow of text where everybody gets lost easily and starts skipping the lines.
Yeah. I've seen it from only words, a lot of words, moving into swim lanes, moving into interdisciplinary swim lanes with text, moving into very limited text, and then you get lost again because there isn't enough information. So there really is that balance with the visualization and the text to find that happy medium. But I would agree with the panelists, that visualization, a very simple workflow to get you started is definitely key from my experience anyways. But certainly you can do the reverse where you write everything down, but it's a heck of a lot easier to draw, I think, to draw it out a little bit more. We've already kind of touched on this slide. Where can processes go wrong? They can go wrong left, right, sideways, up, down, backwards, right? So, and I just gave you some examples here, and there's inadequate or inaccurate training on procedures. We haven't really talked about how procedures, we all need to train on them. Roles and responsibilities are not identified. Maybe they're missed or they're redundant. A procedure form or template is not available for use or not easily accessible. So that quality record isn't generated because the user just doesn't know where it is. An updated procedure includes new steps or new order of steps, and then the training didn't get updated, so people aren't following the procedure. The use of a form or a template is not clearly defined or required. How often have we seen in SOPs, there's a template, but it doesn't say you have to use it, or it's optional. And then the user, right, that role is left wondering, well, do I have to or not? Procedural steps are too vague. Maybe they're not defined. And so it allows that role to interpret what to do, and maybe they're just not sure. Standards are not defined, resulting in inaccurate or unusable information. So that, we see that quite a bit in clinical research. So these are just some things, again, to keep in mind when you're reading through questions. They can be very heady. And so you do need to really clearly read the questions and really think about what is off in that question to allow you to pick the right answer. So these are just to kind of get us started. But does anyone, the panelists, you're welcome. Can you think of other examples? Can you think of other areas that could be a focus where processes can go wrong?
As you said, they can go wrong anywhere.
Mhm.
And typically in the areas where you would not really expect, here it may go wrong, it would, and in the worst possible time. So that's Murphy's law is very reliable.
Mhm.
I would just have a tip for the exam itself. When you are sitting, but I know there are some people who were sitting at the GLP study group, so you already heard me saying that, but I will repeat it for the sake of those who were not there. You may have 20 questions that you answer in no time. It's very easy for you. The answer is obvious, so you just fly through. And then you may get to the question and you get stuck with that question. And you read it again and again and say, yeah, but these answers, it's not really exactly fitting. I think none of the, I don't like any of them, or I would like to have a combination, but I have to choose one. Flag it, leave it, keep going. Because one, you won't waste time and maybe you will finish 80 other questions easily and then go back to that one that somehow you stumbled over. There might be a question that gives you a hint for the answer for that question you flagged. And on top of that, if you miss one, but you have all the rest, you are passing instead of spending quite some time on one or two and then not having time enough to answer those where you would easily get your points to pass the exam. And the other comment is there might be the answer options you would say these are not really the perfect answers. Maybe not. Then choose the least stupid one, so to say, or the one that is closest to what you think, yes, that would be the correct. So it may be the thing of wording, it may be the way of expression, or words having more than one meaning. So don't be afraid if you think like, I don't see really my perfect answer, and go for the one that gets to the correct thing as close as it possible. Mike, you have also some tips for the exam.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Remember that in compliance, a lot of times it's not really a right or wrong answer. What's the best, most logical choice? And so to Camilla's point, think about what makes the most sense. You obviously some things are situational, but think about what's the most logical, best choice. Nothing. A lot of these questions will be no absolute right or wrong. And as you're going through the question, if there is one you get stuck on,
You have messages
as Camilla
waiting.
mentioned, see if there's one or two choices you can absolutely eliminate in your mind. Now your choices are, easier because you're down to maybe, you're down to two. And then, flag that one and come back to it and think about it as you go along, because something may pop into your head as you get to the other questions that help you go back to that one. And you've already narrowed it down maybe to two choices.
Good point. Yeah, and I agree. Common sense and simple logic will most likely drive you to the best answer option. And reading the question very carefully. Sometimes we go through, we skip a word, and then in our mind, the understanding is different. So read it very carefully, read very carefully the answer options. And some answers may be excluded immediately, just based on the logic. So.
Yeah, and when you read the questions, most of them will ask you what is the best choice or best answer. But once in a while, a question will be written and say which is not the correct answer. And so you make sure you're looking at reading it. Are they asking for the best answer or the option that is the only one that's incorrect? So you're not thinking backwards.
Are there any questions right now you would like to ask in general, or what we discussed so far about the procedures? Anyone either write it or raise your hand and start talking? Not then, or let's move to our exam questions.
Mhm. I was going to add just one thing, if I may. The one thing that I remember is that I took this test so much time after the last time I took a test in college or graduate school, and I had forgotten how intense it was, right? You forget how to, like you were talking about time management and answering questions because that time just flies by. So you do have to go back to, your college days and doing time management and answering all these questions. So just remember that. I wish somebody would have talked about time management for answering such a lengthy test, and it's possible. We've all done it, and you all will do it just fine. But you do need to remember to, if you know it, answer it, move on, and just keep at it. So we do have some sample exam
So
questions.
I have a question related to what you just said. This is Tanya. Is there an option when you're taking this test then, like you could skip a question and, keep going with the test and then move backwards to that question? And
Oh,
do you
yeah.
have like scrap paper or anything to write on?
Yep. Yes and yes.
Yeah, I think there is an icon you can click, and that will flag your answers. And then even before submitting, you have again opportunity to review, and you see the flagged ones, which makes it very easy to find those that you decided for the sake of time management to skip them. You don't need to remember the number of that question, so that will be very easy. And you also have a timer on the top, so you would see how much time you have remaining. That should help you. It's on the right, top right of the screen, should be.
Okay. And you can mark them as flagged, like electronically, is what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Just click. There is an icon like a flag, I believe, and that will mark it, and it's very easy then to find them later.
Also,
Okay.
with any of these electronic exams, when you get to the last question in the series, you always have the option to go back to number one again and scroll through all your questions and answers. And so you'll be able to pick up the ones that you skipped or that maybe you flagged because you wanted to think about it a little bit more. But just because you got to the last question, you don't have to submit or push the submit button until you're comfortable and take the time, if you haven't, review all the questions. But keep in mind what experts say on multiple choice exams. About 80 or 90% of the time, your first guess is the best choice. And so as you're going through questions, don't keep second judging yourself and start changing answers around and things like that, because you might end up changing right answers to wrong answers.
Okay.
But you'll definitely be able to see the ones that you've skipped over or flagged for more thought, and go back through those. You can go back through it a second time. I mean, as long as you have time on the clock, you can keep going back through it until you run out of time.
Okay. Thank you.
I did a lot of that grouping. Like if I didn't know something, I wrote down like question number, risk management, and made a note about it. And so at the end, I had, my kind of groups of things that I wanted to check on, and I knew they were all related. So then I could focus on just like a single area at a time. So I used that tactic that I think, Michael, you might have talked about earlier, and just allowed, for all of that kind of groups questions to see if they could talk to one another and answer one another type of thing. So I use that tactic quite a bit.
It wouldn't be surprising in an exam with 125 questions, that you'll have a question that answers a previous question for you. So keep that in mind too. So if you're not sure about a question, flag it or mark it, And then, 10 questions or 20 questions down the road, it may trigger something in your mind about, to provide an answer for a previous question.
Yeah. So we do have a couple. And these are my answers to the a practice exam from years ago. So 2 of these have the right answer and 1 of them has the wrong answer. So we'll just start at the top and you all can, help us figure out. So the first one is, in applying Alcoa principle to source documents, everyone involved in the clinical trial should ensure these records are, and select 1. I chose D, attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate. Wow, I can't even say it. Do we all agree that I was right?
Maybe
Was I
a
actually?
lot of these.
What's that? Say that again, Camilla. I'm sorry. Oh, she asked us to, okay, no problem.
She was saying that she's seeing the D's in the chat area. We're entering the answer in the chat area.
Yeah. So yeah, that one is right. I got that one right somehow. So that is
Yeah,
the one.
let's prompt people to put first, before we say any answer, to put their guesses, to put their choices,
Yeah.
to see if the opinion differs or not.
Yeah. That one is pretty straightforward. I think we all know what Alcoa is. But the other answers are pretty fun too, to read through. Anticipated, that's a good one. So the second one is, why is it advisable to develop procedures for preparing, managing, and reporting of sponsor client audit activities? What do you all think is the right answer? Do you think I got it right or wrong?
I see D's coming.
You all are still agreeing with me. This is awesome. You got a B, or oh, another D and a B. Another B. Anyone else? A couple more B's. So yeah, I got this one wrong. The right answer is B as in banana. So the right answer, the best answer to what Camilla and Michael were sharing with us, the best answer, right, is B as in banana, to ensure audit activities are performed in a manner that will provide information about state of compliance. And so this is the best answer, and not that the other ones are incorrect. Sorry. But B is the best answer. And so this is
my point here is procedures for preparing, managing, and reporting of sponsor or client audit activities. So this talks from the perspective either of a study site, they may have the sponsor or client audit, or even more likely from the perspective of a CRO, because they have clients who are not necessarily sponsors. It may be a larger CRO that has a contract with a sponsor. So these organizations are those now that the audit is asking about. And when we say debarred or disqualified contract research organizations and other vendors, debarment and disqualification is related to investigators. There is no list of debarred or disqualified CROs anywhere by any regulator. But list of disqualified, debarred investigators, yes. But we know that we cannot be really on the side of the site because the site does not have a client really. There may be a sponsor, but this /client gives me a hint, yes, I am sitting now in the CRO chair. So the last answer cannot really be correct because it talks about investigators and not CROs. It's again just a logic. Any objection or any other opinion? You may even say yes, it may be A. Of course, the inspector may ask, do you have such a procedure? I once recommended an auditee to develop such a procedure since they clearly did not know how to host an audit. They communicated with me by email, which I typically don't read during audits, although they were sitting next door. And they did not provide me, even despite many requests for documentation. I spent 2 hours sitting in front of an empty table, and they were talking if and what can be provided. And since the principal investigator was not there, it was a contract research organization, contract research site in Africa, which is like a mixture of clinical site and CRO and all together. So they did not have a procedure to follow, and they did not know what to do, and they were trying to figure it out, and time was flying by. And I was almost about to pack my things, say, okay, goodbye, it's all over. And then that would be really a bad outcome, since it was required by a sponsor before the studies start to make sure they are ready to start. And that would mean the end of the project for them. So having a procedure, yes, that's important for both reasons, you may say. I may want to see your procedure, and if I don't see it, I say, but also from what you do, I feel you are not sure. So it will help you, and it will also give me the assurance that you have a standard process. Just my comment on that, you may have more than one answer, as Michael was saying before, depending on the angle you look at it. But yes, you want to be sure that it's done in a consistent manner that will give the information about the compliance to auditors, to inspectors, to any accreditation body. Sometimes it's the national authority that does some kind of accreditation for those who are involved in the research, depending on the local legislation.
Thank you, Camilla. What time? Oh, we have some time. Okay. The last question is, an organization has been notified of an upcoming regulatory agency inspection. Which activities will best prepare the project team and organization for the inspection? What do you all think might be the best answer here for the?
I see bees coming. All the bees. Nobody else thinks any different. See, I see what to say.
I know, Notorious Coleman. You're right. Indeed, B is the right answer. Thank you, Lydia. Yeah, B is the best answer for this one. And really it reflects what Camilla was sharing just prior about needing to have a specific procedure in place to ensure that it's documented. So
I just saw an interesting answer. D. Ensure that the trial master file is archived.
right, because then they can't get to it. But yeah,
But that would be a finding if they can't get to it.
Yeah,
so
indeed.
think about your retrieval if it's an archive study.
Yeah.
But this is where you got to read the question, because it says, what's the best activity? And so all of these things may be important and should be done at some point. But, right now you've just been notified of agency inspection. What's the best thing you can do to get everybody ready? So think about it in that context.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, all 4 should be done at a certain point of time.
Exactly. So think about timing and priority. Yeah, the trial master file, if the study's done, should be archived. But now's not the time to think about it if the regulatory agency is coming next week. And for A, hopefully everybody is aware of the inspection manual and someone should have trained on it a long time ago, but you know, if they're coming in 3 days, now's not the time to start training on that manual.
Nope, it'll just be a red flag that you didn't do it in the first place.
And for C, writing an audit plan and getting it approved and conduct training sessions, that's a several week to month activity. You're not going to have it happen before the inspectors show up. So again, think about, you know, as it says, what's the best thing you can do right now to prepare?
And
So
by the
how-
way, I've seen organizations that are selling the BIMO manual for quite some high price. It was something like over $1,000. It's available free of charge. You can simply download it. You don't need to pay a cent. And I think actually these organizations that are selling it, maybe with some commentary around to say we have done some extra work. That's a scam, and I don't understand why they are not prosecuted for that. Stealing FDA property and selling it.
Well, it's published by the U.S. government. It's not copyrighted. It's in free, but not everybody knows where to find those things and what's available, and the fact that you can download them. And so sometimes people say, "Oh, I can buy it. It's a lot easier. I'll just do it." Yeah, I mean, you need to think about that. There's so much stuff that is available for free, but be aware that there are some things that are not. But you know, be aware of what's on the FDA webpage and where to find it and how to look for things.
There is an update of the BIMO manual, inspection manual, quite recent. So you can have the latest version and develop a library. That's what I've been doing for years and years. I'm developing a library with regulations and then like with warning letters, because this is a great thing to use as examples for training and examples to learn from. Then all kinds of webinars and links to those. So be organized and create your library. You don't need to read everything, but knowing where to find what, when you need it, have it at hand, it's quite practical.
So these are the only questions that I had available to us. And I had the whole test, and then we had another test. So these were the ones that were related to procedure that I could tell. They're not exactly procedure questions, but I think it gives you a flavor for why process and procedure is an important concept, and really it's the pillar, you know, the principles of these things that are coming through here, and they're applied questions, let's say. So hopefully this gives you a feel for the types of things that you'll see. Is a practice test available from SQA? There is one available for purchase, and you can take it. I think is it 25 questions, I want to say 30, something along those lines. But it does give you, and these were 3 from the one that I took. It does give you a good feel for the types of questions that are asked and how the questions are asked. You can see in this very short example, there's a really easy one, the ALCOA, and then you can see how the principles are applied, and you need to think it through, and especially the last one, which activities will best prepare. So it gives you an idea of how the questions are phrased, which is the thing that I need to prepare for. Does SQA provide a study guide, list of regulations and guidances? I don't know if it's a study guide per se for the test, but certainly I guarantee somewhere in SQA there's support pages with regulations and guidances, and maybe we can find them quickly for you. I don't think that they're posted as support for taking the test, but certainly they're posted there as available for anyone in SQA to review them.
If you review the the handbook guide to certification. It does have sort of a study list areas and things to look at. So you can find it. I believe it's in the certification handbook. There's one page that talks about GCP and another page or section that talks about the GLP exams, but it sort of gives you a list of areas that are covered and the key regulations and guidances to look at. But it's only a couple pages.
Yeah, most of the regulations are coming from the US FDA. So if this is the environment you are typically working under, that's a small advantage, maybe a big advantage. If you are working in another country outside the US, then it's definitely a good thing to go through the practice exams, because you will find out the exact reference to the correct part of the Code of Federal Regulations. You will never be asked a question to say which paragraph or which article of the regulation it is. So you do not need to memorize, like this is in 320.20. That's not the point, that's not important. The important thing is to understand the principle. It's very much similar to GCP, but there are some small nuances. So if you think just knowing GCP very well is enough, almost. But there might be some small things that are more elaborated in the CFR than you would read in the GCP, or some specific requirements from the FDA.
If you could unshare your screen, Lauren, I can put up the other thing.
Absolutely. Thank you. All yours.
So this is from the handbook for certification. You can see this lists the areas that are covered and the topics and the relative weight of what's covered in those sections. So this is for GCP, and there's also a section for GLP if you're interested.
Yep, that's the part in the handbook. Yep.
So it's right in the handbook, and then they have only 2 sample questions, which just to give you a flavor for how questions are offered. And then some study references as well. And it's got FDA, EMA, Health Canada, ICH, ISO, and others. So
as for ISO, that's not something you can easily access. It's behind the paywall, so you are not going to buy it.
ISO you have to buy, yes.
Yeah, and it's something like from 120 to 220 Swiss francs per standard.
Yes.
So I don't advise or I don't recommend you to spend money like this unless your organization is ISO certified and you are implementing it and following it anyway, but then it should be available at the organization level.
Right. If your company follows ISO, you may very well have a library and regulatory where they've already subscribed to those.
And from
I will say, I don't know anything about ISO, and I did okay.
Yeah. I was just about to say, what would really matter if we think about GCP area?
Yeah, I mean, ISO, it reflects a lot of what you would also find in the ICH guidance. So it's not radically different. The only thing, it's more focused on medical devices as opposed to drugs and biologics, but the logic about quality and compliance is the same.
Exactly. And sorry for this alarm, it's my dying UPS that I will need to replace with a new one. Fortunately, it feeds the other screen, so it does not affect this meeting.
We only have 5 minutes left. I know Sam asked a question at the beginning about making, let's see, I'm gonna go back to it. Some perspective on the best way or documents to study for the exam. And I think we addressed them. I took some notes, so I'm just gonna put them in the chat. But are there any last suggestions from the panelists or any last questions from those of you attending that you'd like to ask about processes or about the test in general?
Use the opportunity.
Deanna, I missed where the article you showed at the beginning is available. It is within the PowerPoint presentation. So it's embedded in the PowerPoint presentation. You'll be able to open up the PDF for you. And I'm going to I was asked to give everyone my address. If anyone has any questions after you've been able to think about this a little bit longer, you're welcome to reach out to me as the facilitator, and I'll coordinate any questions that you have with my panelists, Camilla and Michael, and get back to you. How can I access the session once we are done? I believe the recording will be posted in the same place that I forget who was kind enough to give us the place where the slides are posted. I believe that that's where it's going to be, but I can follow up on that. Is it possible to? Yes. So all of the slides for each of the sessions are already posted, or the facilitator intends on posting them before. So you should be able to look at them before the meeting next time. Thank you for the link again. I appreciate it.
And if you want to download the chat, then you have the 3 dots, top bottom. You have the RQAP-GCP study group sessions. Then you have the 3 dots, click on them and save chat. That's the easiest way. It used to be at the bottom. Zoom just kick it up to confuse people. But we found it already.
Thank you, Camilla. Very good. Any other questions or last comments from the panelists?
Just don't be afraid. It's nothing like, it's not a question of life and death. And really try to do the practice exam if you haven't done it before. It has time limit, so it helps you, you need to keep a pace. The questions is a kind of variety from different areas, from both GCP and GLP. I don't know if it's available free of charge and you can just go through it, or if it's a package you need to buy. That's the only thing I really don't know. So that there might be a financial consideration behind. But we are taking all the questions from the practice exam, and you will see them, all of them, during these meetings. So if you don't do it by yourself on your own as a, let's say, rehearsal for the real exam, you are not going to be deprived from the types of questions you may be seeing.
Thank you, Camilla. Michael, do you have any closing thoughts to share?
No, I think we've covered the key points.
Very good. Well, then I would like to thank my panelists today, Camilla and Michael, for supporting this discussion. Thank you for the whole group being here today and sharing your ideas and asking questions and participating. We wish you the very best of luck on the test coming up, and we hope that you did find this valuable and that you'll continue to attend the next session next week. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. I wish you well.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.